Have you read Words of Radiance, Book 2 of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson? Have you reread it yet? Join me today as I share how rereading this epic story has changed everything. There are so many fantastic books out there waiting for my attention still. It's really hard, therefore, to justify rereading anything. But Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive? This is one of the rare exceptions. Wind and Truth, book 5 of this eventual 10-book series, but the conclusion of the opening story arc, the first half, it comes out in December. I've pre-ordered it already. And to fully appreciate and enjoy that epic book that's coming to me, I felt I needed to refresh my recollections of this massive epic fantasy series, thus the reread. But I had no idea what I was getting into. I'm so glad I'm doing this reread. Book 1, The Way of Kings, blew my mind at how much more I enjoyed it now than when I read it the first time. And I've got content on that out there. You can go ahead and check out the previous episodes. Now, Words of Radiance, it's no different. Shockingly better on the reread. Still exciting. And parts that I found before that had dragged were kind of boring me. Not at all now. Having context matters with the Stormlight Archive. Now be warned, from here on out, full spoiler content about Words of Radiance. What possibly surprised me the most is that the big reveals, the high moments of this story, were still absolutely awesome and delightful, even though I knew they were coming. I mean, when Kaladin goes radiant, heck yeah! I'm like, oh, it's almost here, it's almost here. Yes, it's here. It was so funny. But here for you today, I have the top 5 things that for me, on this Words of Radiance reread, I now found made so much more sense. Things I was able to connect in ways that just totally missed me before. Aspects that I fully failed to grasp or just didn't appreciate it as I should have. So here's my top 5. Number 5, the Stormfather's connection to the Almighty. Somehow that just went right over my head before. I knew he's the big important Spren. He kind of looks after all the other Spren, maybe bullies them a little bit too. He's also behind the high storms. We knew all that. And I know what's coming. You know, there's a connection between him and Dalinar. I knew that. But the fact that he is the one that was delivering Dalinar's visions, the fact that he is a piece, all that's left of the Almighty. Okay, I totally missed that somehow. So he's been relating with Dalinar for a while. I also caught on this reread that he had previously been giving these same visions to Gavilar. And it didn't work with him either. You know, in both cases, he's like, it's too late. You know, you didn't get the messages when you could have done something about it and made a difference so that the Everstorm wouldn't come, the Voidbringers wouldn't be back. And yeah, totally missed that. And that really enriches this connection that he now has with Dalinar, that he's bonded. It's like, whoa, you've bonded with a piece of the Almighty. Cool. Number 4, Renarin. Those little clues that were scattered throughout the book that he's going to end up a Radiant. Didn't see them at all the first time. Didn't even realize I'd missed them after it does happen at the end. That came out of nowhere. No, it didn't. It was great. I mean, particularly now understanding that fight where he froze, he's hearing his shard blade screaming. Yeah, okay, we get that now. That's what happens. You know, we get no Renarin POV in this book, so we didn't know the screaming was happening, but it's explained later, and now I get it. It makes perfect sense. Honestly, it's a dead giveaway, but I didn't see it. I didn't catch on the first time through the book. Definitely appreciate Renarin's character at another level now. Number 3, speaking of characters I appreciate more, Shallan. Her development as a character and her growth into a Radiant through Words of Radiance was fantastic, but my first read, I really didn't care much about her. Her parts were a little annoying. Now, I loved them. And there's so many little tidbits scattered throughout the book about her that I wasn't picking up the first time. For example, one of the biggest is that the fact that the death of her mother and her mother's lover was so completely not what I thought it was on my first read. I mean, literally, now I understand. Her mother and associate, not lover, were gonna kill Shallan because they realized she had bonded with a Spren. All the way back there, she and Pattern were already connected. And Shallan did kill them, but it was totally self-defense. Wow. Like I said, I didn't get that before. Not at all. And then her killing of her father? I mean, that's not self-defense. That's maybe justice. That's what was necessary at that time. But ooh, that was rough. And now we get this dynamic between Shallan, Adolin, and Kaladin. Oh, that's so good. That's the one part of the story the first time that I kind of enjoyed, but I enjoyed it much more this time because I was appreciating Shallan far better. Second one, the Ghost Bloods. And realizing how much they're tied into everything in so many different ways. Again, I knew the Ghost Bloods were something that going on here in the first read, but it kind of tied into Shallan's storyline a bit too much, and it was again where I was getting a little bored, and it's like a distraction. No, it's not. It's critical. They're connected to Taravangian and the diagram. They've got connections to Moash and this attempt to take down King Elokar. They're connected to a bigger picture than anything that's actually going on as the major events in Words of Radiance. They are bigger than Roshar. I didn't realize what I was seeing the first time around. And still, honestly, I don't get everything. I haven't gone into the Coppermind, whatever that website is out there, to dig into the backgrounds of this stuff. I'm just digging my things out of the books at this point. It's obvious there's more to the Ghost Bloods now than I was picking up before. And I look forward to continuing to have these revelations as we keep moving through the books. But it's fascinating. But my number one thing that I appreciate so much more on the reread of Words of Radiance is understanding the character of Zeth. The tragedy of this character. I understood him the first time mostly, but I connected with his struggles much more empathetically this time. I mean, he was made truthless completely wrongly. There's no reason he should have been made a truthless. And he knew deep down that this was wrong, and yet he accepted the judgment of the leaders that made him truthless and went and did his role as faithfully and with as much honor as he could. And yet, to see how everything just crumbles then when he realizes, no, he was right all along. So he never truly was truthless. And therefore, everything he's done has been murder, has been horrific, he could have said no. And it just breaks him. And he lets Kaladin kill him. Because that's what he deserves now. That's the way of honor. And then he's brought back, and he's like, "Why did you bring me back? I wanted to die." I'm like, "Oh, Zeth, I feel you, man. I understand. Yeah, this is wrong. They should have let you go." And yet, he's brought back because he lived with so much honor. And here, have a sword. And it's Nightblood. I didn't catch that was Nightblood before. Okay, that's a Cosmere reference. If you've only done Stormlight through Words of Radiance, you don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm not going to spoil it anymore. But I knew Nightblood when I saw it when I read this the first time, but I didn't get that's what that was. You catch on in the next book. But it's there, and I'm like, oh, what a tie-in. Love it. It's great. That's going to be awesome. And appreciated it so much more. So, you've heard now the 5 things I better connected with and realized on this reread. This book is so fantastic, and I thought it was okay the first time until it got good near the end. No, the whole thing is great. But what about you? Share in the comments now the things that you realized much better on a reread, and anything else you want to go off on about Words of Radiance. I'm here for it. I'm looking forward to what you say. And for more content like this episode, sharing about books we love, as well as recommendations about books you haven't come across yet, be sure to click the subscribe button down below and that notification bell so you don't miss any new content. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.